Hello. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about the SRTEs, which are the student evaluations of instruction. So for most of you, you are first-year students here at Penn State, which means you've probably never done an SRTE before. You've probably never been asked to evaluate your teachers or the way that a class is put together or whatever it is. One of the things I want to talk to you about is why these SRTEs matter, what impact they have at various levels, and I want to give you a little bit of a sense of how they're used. So basically, the SRTEs are Penn State's attempt to figure out whether or not instruction has been successful, whether or not a course has gone well. What that means is really, really relative. So one of the things that's challenging about SRTEs is that it's unlikely at this point that you've taken many university classes, and it's unlikely you've taken many classes that are similar to one another. So you don't necessarily have that much of a basis to compare when you're doing the SRTEs. So that's something that we are aware of. Like, if you're in English 15, you're a first-year student, then you've probably never taken another university-level English class. So comparing an English class to, say, a Chem 101 lecture or whatever it is, they're simply different types of things. And so, in theory, the standards that you would want to apply for figuring out their success are going to be somewhat different. That being said, there's no real good systemic way of doing that. There's no real good sort of guidelines that I can give you for how to determine whether or not this class was successful, or what that success means to you. You do want to try and consider things as honestly and fairly as you can, as always, as with anything, but that is one of the challenges of SRTEs. In terms of why they're important at a couple of different levels. So one level is for Penn State as an institution. So they need to assess whether or not the course material is successful, whether or not the instruction is successful, whether or not I as a teacher am successful. And I'll talk more about that in just a second, why that matters to them. But this is their quality control mechanism. And there are a massive number of problems with using student evaluations as a quality control mechanism. I'm not going to talk about most of those, but there's a substantial amount of professional literature in the realm of university teaching about why SRTEs are problematic. But these are the best mechanism that Penn State right now has in place to figure out whether or not things are working. So that's how this is useful for Penn State. How this is useful for me on pedagogical level or teaching level is that the written comments especially give you the opportunity to identify things for me that worked or didn't work about this class, things that you thought were really successful that I should keep for future incarnations of the class, or things that didn't work that I should try and figure out a different way of approaching for the future. Now, this is actually really, really important this semester because we're doing an online course. I have taught online courses before, but not here at Penn State and not under the Penn State system. So if there are things about the way that the course ran this semester as an online course that you thought could be improved, or things you thought were really successful, please let me know in the comments, because I'm probably going to be teaching English 15 again in the spring semester, and if I can improve things, that's really useful for me. The other reason that evals are important for me is because they play a major role in determining whether or not I get to keep my job. So you may or may not know this, probably most of you don't, but the overwhelming majority of people who teach university classes nowadays do not have secure jobs. We are contingent faculty or grad students. Grad students have a little bit of security for as long as they're in their graduate programs, but contingent faculty don't have security beyond either a particular semester or a particular year. So I have a contract through the end of this year, but then it's up to Penn State whether or not they want to extend my contract, whether or not they want to rehire me. And there are some people who just work semester by semester. Like one of my office mates gets hired to teach individual sections, and so she won't know until December sometime whether or not she's actually going to be working here in the spring. And so for faculty who are contingent, which is about 70% of faculty nationwide, student evals tend to be a disproportionately important thing in determining whether or not we get to keep our jobs. So for that reason, and I'm not saying for that reason, be overly generous with your instructors and give us all top marks, although you could do that. I'm not discouraging that necessarily. But what I'm saying is, because this is a thing that helps determine whether or not we get rehired, whether or not we keep our jobs, please try and fill these out as honestly as you can, and please definitely take the time to do this for all of your courses, because this is, again, something that we as instructors depend upon. So, that being said, the other thing that I want you all to be aware of with the SRTEs is that these have no connection whatsoever to the grading for this class or any other class. In fact, at Penn State, it's set up very specifically so that the SRTEs cannot have an impact on the grades that you get, and vice versa. The grades that you get can't have an impact on the SRTE scores that you give us. So the SRTEs are due generally, I think, by the last day of classes, I think is when the cutoff is. And so in theory, and realistically in practice, instructors don't have grades done on the last day of class. They usually get grades done sometime either the following week, exam week, or even later than that in some cases. So you will finish SRTEs prior to when grading is actually done, which means that you won't know your grades by the time you do the SRTEs. You may be able to make an educated guess, but you won't know the actual grade that you've earned until after the SRTEs are done, which means that that won't be a factor in your assessment of our instruction. Contrary-wise, we don't get the SRTEs until after we enter final grades. So I have to submit your grades through LionPath and hit send, which means you will then get the grades, and then within 24 hours after that, the SRTEs will unlock for me. So I can't say, I can't, for instance, get a hold of the SRTEs and say, they all gave me 2s, everybody gets a C for this class. Like, I can't do that. Or I can't say, everybody gave me 7s, so I'm giving you all A's. Like, that's a key thing here, is that the grades in the SRTEs are kept independent of one another so that we can, as much as possible, ensure that each of them is honest. So that you're honestly assessing me and my teaching, and I'm honestly assessing you and your work over the course of this semester, rather than letting either of those things sort of prejudice the other. So again, I'm going to encourage you all to fill out the SRTEs for all of your classes. Please take the time to think carefully about them and to do them honestly, because they really do matter. So thanks.